they're born. So let's look at the different processes now. When your parents register the child as being born, the registrar issues a certificate. Now, we read that on their site just a little bit before. But on the bottom of the certificate is a warning not to be used as a means of identification. Yet on the website, they're telling you that you needed to get your driver's licenses, etc. Okay, but the bottom of the certificate tells us it's not to be used as identification. And this is what we're looking at, our born identity, are we not? The certificate is what they use to conduct commerce, and if we use it, we must suffer the consequences. You must take the good with the bad when you go into the public system or the birth system. Now, on the other side of the ledger, we are born. So to become free, we must use the form which shows that we were born, and that is your printout. We must obtain a copy of our printout. Now, this is in New Zealand. In Australia and England, it is the extract. And in Canada, it's the certificate of live birth. Now, both these certificates, both the printout and the birth certificate, are on security paper. Now, there is the biggest clue that I can give you is that they are both on security paper, meaning they are registered securities with the Treasury. Bear that in mind. So whenever an agent for the corporation wishes to do business with us, the first thing they must do is gain our consent. Now, they do this by sending us letters or invitations to attend their courts or any of the other myriad of reasons that they get to get us into commerce. And if we don't know the rules, we end up paying. But on the private side, however, the born side, this is the private side of the ledger, and the corporation do not want us to know about this side. While we have evidence to prove that this side exists, accessing it is the hard part, but we're going to have a go. Once the agent for the corporation has our consent, either by ignorance, power of attorney, or dishonor, then they order a copy of our birth certificate. The birth certificate is printed on security paper, and the agent then fills out the back in the correct manner, puts the correct stamps on it, and floats it onto the money markets. And this is how their money is created. Every time they come to us to take us to court or any other thing, they will go and order a copy of our birth certificate. And if you do a Freedom of Information Act, you will find that this is the case. However, on the private side, to operate in this side of the ledger, we must use our printout and fill out the back correctly, pay the stamp duty, and send it to either the Treasury or the tax collectors. Now, each country has their own, in America it's the IRD, in Australia it's the Australian Tax Office. In America it's IRS, in New Zealand it's IRD, and Australia is the Australian Tax Office. Okay, but to operate on this side, you're going to have a sound knowledge of the Bills of Exchange Act and the Stamp Duties Act will be needed to operate successfully on that side. Now, I'm going to give you one example of an agent doing business with us. When we go to the bank for a loan, they only need two things from us, and that's a power of attorney, and they need to make us the customer. Now, to do that, they will get us to sign a loan agreement. And this is what I must now tell you. While everyone has been misled into believing that that original note or the loan agreement that we signed is the key to uncovering bank fraud, it most certainly isn't. Once the banks have our power of attorney and you are the customer, they order a copy of your birth certificate, and that's the instrument that we need to be asking for, because they fill out the instructions on the back of the birth certificate, and that is what goes on to the bond markets. Forget about asking for the original note. If you want to do something with the original note, cancel the power of attorney on that original note and make yourself the bank, not the customer. But if you want to find out where your loan document is, you will find it's the birth certificate that is out there trading on the markets. I can put money on that. Okay, so now we start to undo the mess. every document, contract, or privilege that was obtained using our birth certificate must now be rescinded or given back. The first document needs to be looked at is the birth certificate and how we can go about returning that, okay? Because this is the warehouse keeper's receipt. Now, the bailee in possession is the person that holds this, our property, and so we need to return it to the bailee in possession. Okay, well, I've seen many different ways. The most simple way may be to surrender it. So let's look at what surrender means. Once again, it's conveyancing, estates conveyancing, a yielding up of an estate for life or years to him who has an immediate estate in reversion or remainder, by which the lesser estate is merged in the greater by mutual agreement. A surrender is of a nature directly opposite to a release, so they're not releasing us, because a release operates by the greater estate descending upon the less. But the former is the falling of a less estate into a greater by deed. So we need a deed of surrender, and a surrender immediately divests the estate of the surrenderer and vests it in the surrenderee. That seems like the correct way to do it, as far as I can see. Now, this is just a bit more of, from out of both ears on surrender. The technical and proper words of this conveyance are surrender and yield up. Those are the words you want to be using. So I will put a document on the next slide so that you can see the surrender and yield up. The surrender may be expressed or implied. The latter is when an estate incompatible with the existing estate is accepted, or the leasee takes a new lease of the same lands. So let's have a look. Here's the deed of surrender that I did up, and you'll see somewhere on there that one of the important parts, I hope you can read this clearly out there, is with clean hands and equity. We can do it with clean hands and equity. They cannot. All right, so have a good read of that. Just pause the slide, or take a screenshot is probably the easiest way. If you don't know how to take a screenshot, go to Google and press in take screenshot, and you should be able to take a screenshot of that. Okay, once we have surrendered our birth certificate, the name which has been the cause of our grief will become obsolete, and we will now submit our printout so that we may operate under our identity, our born identity. Wonder what they were trying to tell us in this movie. Born identity. Now here's a guy who didn't know who he was, wandering around lost. And I think what they're trying to tell us in this movie is, hey, go looking and see that you were born, not birthed. And maybe that's the message behind this movie. I'll leave that to you. But a few words of caution. The system that the corporation runs is extremely efficient and has many checks and balances. Now, do not venture anger at public servants. These are guys sitting on the counter who don't know anywhere near the amount of stuff that I'm putting out in these videos. So don't go venting your anger at them. Ask for help. And whenever you ask for help from them, ask them 3 times. So, may I see your supervisor? May I see your supervisor? Always refer any private matters to the chief financial officer or chief executive officer in person. Okay? Do it personally and do it in the private. Always ask to speak to them in private. We need to correct the record to show that we are correctly identified, i.e. not a name. We need an identity. We need our born identity. We don't need a name. All right, so if we're going to be doing anything, this is what we need to put on all our documents. Now, you can buy those stamps already made, private and confidential, and I certainly have one of those and have used it for many years. I also have a seal so that I can sign on behalf of the corporation, which is my All Capitals Corporation. So you need to start investing in just a little bit to make sure that you've got everything right when you're doing this. But now the key to the whole matrix is to do the reverse to what we have been indoctrinated to do. And this is the whole key to it, is share your information with everyone and do not charge them for it. Get this information out, give it away freely, and help others, because we're on a spiritual mission here, not an argumentative mission. We're here to set the world free. All the best.